Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling guilty, confused, and somehow at fault, even though you're not sure what you did wrong? John used to ask himself that question every night while staring at the ceiling of his small apartment, the city lights flickering across his face like silent accusations. He wasn't weak, and he wasn't naive, yet somehow he always ended up apologizing. It started when he met Emily at a friend's birthday party, where her laughter cut through the noise and landed directly in his chest. She made him feel chosen, seen, special in a way that felt almost cinematic. In the early weeks, she would text him paragraphs about how he was different from any man she had ever known. She told him he made her feel safe, and John wore that compliment like armor. But slowly, the tone shifted in ways so subtle he couldn't pinpoint the moment it changed. One evening at a quiet restaurant, Emily's smile tightened when John mentioned grabbing coffee with a coworker. She leaned back in her chair, eyes glassy, and whispered that she guessed she just wasn't enough for him. John felt his stomach drop, as if he had committed a crime without knowing the law. He tried to explain it was only a work meeting, but her silence stretched across the table like a wall. By the time dessert arrived, he was apologizing for hurting her feelings. That was the first time guilt became the bridge she used to cross into control. Days later, she brought up an argument they had the week before and insisted John had raised his voice. He clearly remembered speaking calmly, yet her certainty made his memory feel unstable. She looked at him with disappointment and said he always rewrote history to make himself the victim. John felt disoriented, as if the ground beneath him had quietly shifted. He started replaying conversations in his head, doubting his own tone and intentions. At work, he found himself distracted, wondering whether he was secretly a selfish person. Emily would sometimes cry and tell him that everyone in her life eventually abandoned her. She said if he truly loved her, he would prove he wasn't like the others. The request sounded romantic on the surface, but it carried an invisible demand. John began canceling plans with friends to reassure her. He stopped mentioning female colleagues altogether. Each sacrifice felt small, almost reasonable, yet collectively they reshaped his world. His apartment, once filled with laughter from weekend gatherings, became quiet. When he hinted at missing his friends, Emily accused him of caring more about them than about her fragile heart. The word fragile echoed in his mind long after she left. He told himself he just needed to be more patient, more understanding. But patience slowly turned into self-erasure. One rainy evening, John arrived late to dinner after staying overtime at the office. Emily's face hardened as she said he clearly prioritized his job over their relationship. He tried to explain the deadline, but she interrupted, saying she guessed she would always come second. Her eyes filled with tears, and once again, he found himself apologizing. Driving home alone that night, John felt a strange emptiness spreading inside him. He realized he couldn't remember the last time he had felt completely at ease around her. Instead, he felt like he was constantly walking across a frozen lake, afraid the ice might crack. The breaking point came during a small disagreement about a weekend trip. John suggested visiting his parents, whom he hadn't seen in months. Emily's voice turned icy as she said he was choosing them over her. When he gently insisted it wasn't a competition, she accused him of gaslighting her. The word struck him like a slap. He had read about gaslighting before, but now he was the one being accused. For a moment, he wondered if maybe she was right. That doubt was the most powerful weapon she held. That night, alone in his living room, John opened his laptop and searched for answers. He read about emotional manipulation, about guilt tripping, and reality distortion. He learned how manipulators often play the victim to avoid accountability. The descriptions felt uncomfortably familiar. He saw himself in the stories of people who slowly lost trust in their own perceptions. A memory resurfaced of Emily saying, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't question me." He realized love should not require blindness. The next week, during another argument, John did something different. Instead of apologizing immediately, he paused and took a breath. He told Emily calmly that he remembered the conversation clearly and that he did not raise his voice. She laughed softly and said he was being defensive. But this time, the laughter didn't pierce him the same way. He felt a small spark of clarity ignite inside his chest. He repeated that his feelings and memories were valid. Emily's expression shifted from sadness to irritation. She accused him of changing and becoming cold. John noticed how quickly vulnerability turned into accusation. For the first time, he saw the pattern instead of just feeling its impact. He began setting small boundaries. When she demanded constant updates about his whereabouts, he told her he needed space to focus on work. When she hinted that he didn't love her enough, he refused to argue and simply said he cared deeply but would not prove it through isolation. The arguments intensified before they softened. Emily alternated between affection and withdrawal, creating emotional whiplash. But John stayed steady, like a tree refusing to bend in a storm. He reconnected with his friends and shared what he had been experiencing. Speaking the words out loud made them real. His friends listened without judgment and gently affirmed his perceptions. That validation felt like oxygen after months underwater. One evening, Emily confronted him about his growing distance. John looked at her, not with anger, but with clarity. He told her he would not continue in a relationship where guilt replaced communication. She tried to cry, then tried to argue, then tried to charm him. For the first time, none of it moved him. He understood that manipulation feeds on reaction. When he stopped reacting, the power dynamic shifted. The relationship ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with a quiet decision. John felt grief, but he also felt relief. In the weeks that followed, he noticed how his thoughts became clearer. He no longer replayed every conversation searching for hidden faults. He trusted his memory again. He understood that emotional manipulation thrives in confusion and self-doubt. It weakens you not by force, but by slowly convincing you that you are the problem. John learned that boundaries are not cruelty, they are protection. He learned that empathy should never cost you your identity. And most importantly, he learned that love does not demand constant proof through suffering. If you see yourself in John's story, pause and ask whether guilt is guiding your decisions. Ask whether your reality feels stable or constantly questioned. Awareness is the first shield against manipulation. Clarity is the second. And courage is the final one. If this story resonated with you and you want to explore the deeper layers of the human mind, subscribe to Deep Mind Portal and continue the journey inward with us.